The easiest way to misunderstand Space Marines is to think they are just big soldiers in bigger armor. That is close enough for a first glance, and wrong enough to miss the whole point. Space Marines, the Adeptus Astartes, are engineered warrior monks built to fight wars normal humans cannot survive. If the Astra Militarum is humanity by the billion, then Space Marines are humanity turned into a sacred weapon. That is why they are the face of Warhammer 40K. They are heroic enough to save worlds, horrifying enough to show what the Imperium has become, and tragic enough that even their glory has blood under the paint. A Space Marine begins as a human boy, but he does not stay human in any ordinary sense. Through surgery, genetic implantation, brutal training, and psycho-indoctrination, he is rebuilt into something stronger, faster, harder to kill, and far more obedient to war. He gains organs that change how his body works, reflexes that make ordinary soldiers look slow, and a mind trained to endure fear, pain, isolation, and horror. By the end, he is less like a modern soldier and more like a living relic with a bolter in his hands. Space Marines are not the main army of the Imperium. They are too rare for that, and the galaxy is much too large. The main human war machine is the Astra Militarum, countless ordinary men and women thrown into impossible campaigns. Space Marines arrive where timing, symbolism, and concentrated violence matter most. They board enemy ships, break sieges, kill commanders, hold doomed gates, strike from orbit, and turn a battlefield by appearing at the moment when everyone else has started to fail. In a setting built on scale, they are not numerous, they are decisive. The secret inside every Space Marine is Gene Seed. It is not just medicine, and it is not just a set of upgrades. Gene Seed is inherited biological legacy, descended from the Primarchs, the Emperor's 20 superhuman sons. Through that legacy, each Space Marine chapter carries a mythic ancestry, a set of strengths, a culture, and often a flaw it can never fully escape. That is why Space Marines are not simply mass-produced super soldiers, they are lineages. A chapter does not only recruit new warriors, it preserves a sacred bloodline of war. Its apothecaries recover Gene Seed from the dead, guard it like a holy relic, and use it to create the next generation. This makes every chapter feel ancient, even when it is newly founded. A battle brother is not only a soldier in armor. He is a fragment of a Primarch's inheritance walking through the battlefield. In the earliest great wars of the Imperium, Space Marines fought as enormous legions. Those legions helped the Emperor conquer the stars during the Great Crusade. Then came the Horus Heresy, when many of the Emperor's own sons and their legions turned against him. The Imperium learned the most Warhammer lesson imaginable. Its finest weapons could become its greatest enemies. After the heresy, Robaut Guilliman broke the surviving loyal legions into smaller chapters. The point was simple. Never again should one commander hold the loyalty of so many Space Marines. The Codex Astartes became the blueprint for most chapters, shaping their companies, squads, tactics, command structure, and philosophy. In the standard model, a chapter has roughly 1,000 battle brothers, though famous chapters often bend the rules or interpret them through their own traditions. The Codex is not just a rulebook, it is the Imperium's trauma response to the heresy, written in military doctrine. The making of a Space Marine is not clean or kind. Chapters often recruit from death worlds, hive gangs, warrior tribes, prison populations, fortress monastery serfdoms, and cultures already shaped by violence. The aspirant is usually young because the body must be altered before it fully matures. He faces trials designed to kill the weak, break the unlucky, and reveal the few who can survive being remade. Then come the implants, the surgeries, the chemical treatments, the hypno-indoctrination, and the endless training. Many aspirants die during the process, and failure can mean death, servitude, or a half-life in the machinery of the chapter. The successful recruit gains power, but he also loses ordinary life. Family becomes memory, childhood becomes raw material, and personal identity is rebuilt around the chapter, the Emperor, and war. That is the tragedy under the armor.
A Space Marine may become humanity's defender, but he often stops being fully human before he ever saves anyone.
Power armor is what turns an already enhanced warrior into a walking fortress. It amplifies strength, protects against hostile worlds, links to the Marine's nervous system, and makes him look like a cathedral learned how to march. The bolter is the perfect weapon for that image. It is oversized, brutal, and explosive. A gun made for hands that are no longer merely human. Chain swords, power swords, flamers, plasma weapons, jump packs, Terminator armor, dreadnought sarcophagi, and drop pods all add to the same idea. Space Marines do not just fight, they arrive like a religious event with ammunition. Their armor colors, relics, seals, banners, and chapter markings turn military equipment into sacred theater. Even when a chapter is practical, it still looks like a knightly order built inside a weapon factory. That matters because the Imperium is not only trying to win battles, it is trying to make its enemies afraid, its citizens obedient, and its own warriors believe they are part of something older than fear. On the battlefield, Space Marines are shock troops. They hit hard, fast, and at the point where a war can be broken open. They might tear through a fortress gate, teleport into the heart of an enemy command center, descend in drop pods through fire, or hold a position that should already be lost. They are used where a small force can change a large outcome. Against orcs, they are disciplined violence against endless savage momentum. Against tyrannids, they are armored willpower against devouring biology. Against necrons, they are defiant flesh and faith against ancient machine death. Against daemons and traitors, they become symbols as much as soldiers, because some wars are fought over belief as much as territory. That is why the Space Marine fantasy works. In individual moments, they really do stand between ordinary humans and extinction. Many Space Marines are genuinely brave. Many chapters sincerely protect humanity, sacrifice themselves, and fight horrors that would make ordinary soldiers collapse. Their courage is not fake. Their discipline is not fake, and their last stands are not fake. When a squad of Astartes holds a breach against impossible odds, the people behind them may live because of it. This is the part that makes them compelling, rather than simply monstrous. Space Marines can be noble in the moment. They can rescue civilians, defend worlds, kill tyrants, and die without hesitation so weaker people have one more hour of life. They are not pretending to be warriors. They are some of the most effective warriors humanity has ever made. If Warhammer 40K only made them cruel, they would be simple. The setting is sharper because their heroism is real. The horror is that real heroism sits inside a terrible system. Space Marines are made from children, remade through pain, and trained to see endless war as sacred purpose. Their virtues are weaponized. Loyalty becomes fanaticism. Courage becomes obedience. Sacrifice becomes policy. And brotherhood becomes a wall between them and the humanity they claim to defend. They serve an empire that often treats human life as fuel. Sometimes they save a city, and sometimes they help burn one because command, doctrine, or suspicion says it must be done. That is the central contradiction. A Space Marine can be a hero in a scene and a nightmare as an institution. He is a protector, but also proof that the Imperium's answer to danger is to make a stronger weapon, give it a prayer, and point it at the dark. In 40K, even salvation arrives with a targeting lens. Chaos Space Marines are the dark mirror of the Adeptus Astartes. Many descend from the legions that rebelled during the Horus Heresy, and they carry that ancient betrayal into the present. They are not merely evil versions of loyal Marines. They are what happens when superhuman pride, resentment, ambition, and violence are freed from imperial discipline and offered to the warp. Some are bitter veterans of a war 10,000 years old. Some are mutated killers, barely recognizable as the warriors they used to be. Some still speak of brotherhood, honor, and truth, but those words now echo through demonic bargains and endless revenge. They proved that the Space Marine project was always dangerous, because the strongest defenders could become the strongest predators.
When a loyal Marine faces a traitor Marine, the fight is not just good armor against bad armor. It is the Imperium staring at its own original sin. Primaris Space Marines are the newer generation introduced in the modern era of the setting. Created through Belisarius Caul's secret work and unleashed after Robute Guilliman's return, they are larger, tougher, and equipped with newer armor and weapons. In practical lore terms, they reinforce broken chapters, found new ones, and give the Imperium a stronger breed of Astartes for an age that has become even worse. In thematic terms, they ask a very 40K question. Can the Imperium truly change, or can it only build a bigger version of the same weapon? Primaris Marines look like progress, but the progress is still a taller soldier made for a darker war. That does not make them meaningless. It makes them honest.
The galaxy escalated, so the Imperium escalated with it. When the storm grew larger, humanity answered by making bigger angels of death. So, what are Space Marines? They are genetically engineered warrior monks, descended from the Emperor's grand design, shaped by the Primarchs, organized into chapters, armed like walking tanks, and sent where the Imperium needs a miracle with ammunition. Why do fans love them?
Because they are visually iconic, mythic, powerful, and often genuinely heroic. Why do they define Warhammer 40K? Because they contain the whole contradiction of the setting. They are noble monsters, sacred weapons, human protectors, and proof of human desperation. They show that in the grim darkness of the far future, even the heroes are terrifying. That is Warhammer. Thank you for joining Lore Heretic in the archives tonight. If this little expedition into grimdark lore earned its candlelight, subscribe, pull up a chair, and I will see you in the next one.